her introduction. I'm sorry, Holly, I don't have an introduction in front of me, but the article was in the journal. So, Holly, thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for coming. When I was asked to speak at this ceremony as a veteran, my first thought was, I don't feel qualified. I was in the Marine Corps Reserves for 3 years, and I never fought in a war. I happened to join during peacetime in 1987, and I happened to get out right before Desert Storm in 1990. I never got shot at, and I never shot at anybody. This wasn't on purpose, and I was absolutely prepared to do what I had signed up to do. It just didn't happen. Obviously, things are quite a bit different now, and there are probably people in this audience who have had loved ones or even themselves away for months or years in faraway and dangerous situations fighting for our country. And I'm very, very thankful to those people. With that said, since I am here to speak about being a veteran on Memorial Day, here I go. To give a brief background, I grew up in Northern California in the Redwoods, almost in Oregon. I was a typical teenager. I knew everything, and I said that I would never join the military because I didn't like being told what to do. After high school, I moved to Oregon for college, and apparently my parents thought that wasn't far enough away because 6 months later, they moved to Guam with my dad's engineering company. And Guam was about 7,000 miles away, as opposed to a 4-hour drive. Okay? Like many other 18-year-olds, I really had trouble getting into the learning mode of college. I got into other modes of college, but I had trouble getting into the learning mode. So after a year of substandard choices, bad academics, and selling a whole lot of McDonald's French fries, I decided it was time for me to learn how to be told what to do. My brother, who was just 1 year older than me, had joined the Marines a year prior. So I thought, like any sibling, if he can do it, I can do it. But the problem was, while my parents were very happy with his military decision, they absolutely did not see me as military material, and they really wanted me to stay in college. So I didn't bother consulting them when I went into the recruiting office and signed up. After I had seemingly signed my life away, I wrote to my parents. I told them that I appreciated everything they had done for me, but that college just wasn't for me, and that I had just joined the Marines, to be like Max. I said I thought it was time for a kick in the pants from Uncle Sam's finest to help me grow up a little bit. I told them I loved them very much, I appreciated everything they had done, and that I hoped that they would support me in this, but if they didn't, I was going to do it anyway. It took several weeks for me to hear back, because that was back before internet and the email. I know some people here have never been alive during no internet or email. But when I got their letter, it made my day. They said they were proud of me for recognizing my shortcomings, and if they had to, they would swim the Pacific to see me graduate from boot camp. So obviously I breathed a huge sigh of relief when I got that letter. What I didn't know was at that time, they were also calling my brother and saying, "Do you know what your sister is doing?" So about a week after that, I got a phone call from Max. He was a fairly new Marine. He was not feeling the jarhead love at that point in his career. And he said, "Don't do it." He actually used more choice words than this, but in essence it was, "Don't do it. It's not fun. I'm getting out after 4 years." Well, by then everybody had told me that I would never ever make it in the Marines. So I was darn sure going to make it in the Marines. So for those of you who are struggling with strong-willed children, there's a positive side to that, I guess. I was determined I was going to do this. So I said, "No, I want to be a Marine." And he said, "Well then, go in the reserves, see how you like it first. You can always switch and go active." I thought, I'm pretty fickle. That's probably a good idea. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point. So I switched my commitment to the reserves, which meant going to regular boot camp with active duty Marines, going to a school for my job, a training for my job, and then working one weekend a month and 2 weeks out of each year while working a civilian life the rest of the time. Just FYI, that same brother who was getting out after 4 years retired last year after 26 years as a Warrant Officer 5. So I'm very proud of him. He's absolutely my hero. He always makes me tear up. Excuse me. And about a month before his retirement, his son graduated from boot camp. So, yay, Max. Okay, sorry. Boot camp, by the way, Marines get emotional too. Boot camp in Parris Island, South Carolina was exactly what a doctor would have ordered for me. And back then, with some of the things I was doing, probably a judge and a therapist, if they'd had the opportunity. Before Marine Corps basic training, I had no idea what I was capable of. If I was doing something stupid like running and it hurt, I'd stop, because that made a whole lot of sense to me. Why do something that hurts, right? Well, there were times in boot camp I would be running with shin splints and a stitch in my side and lungs that felt like they were on fire. And I was sure that I was going to die. The Marine Corps brought me in here to kill me. It's clear they don't care about my well-being here. I'm going to die. But if I stopped, one of those really crazy drill instructors, and women drill instructors, I know men drill instructors are scary. Women are scary in their own way. But if I had stopped, they would have been screaming over me to get my you-know-what back moving. So I didn't stop. And amazingly, I did not die. And that gave me the lifelong lesson of how much we can control both positive and negative with our minds. To this day, if I'm facing something difficult, like speaking in front of people on Memorial Day, I remind myself of some of the things that I pushed through in the Marines, such as the gas chamber, rappelling, and rifle qualifications, and I know I can handle pretty much anything. After boot camp, I went to a 3-month school in Camp Pendleton, California, and then my official Marine Corps work time was 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of each year. I spent most of my Marine Corps time doing administrative type work because that was my Marine Corps job. But I also had opportunities to meet other challenges that helped define who I am today. For example, I transferred at one point from an engineering unit in Oregon to an infantry unit in San Rafael, California. That was back when the Marine Corps did not acknowledge that women actually did fight in wars, and they wouldn't give women infantry-related jobs. So a lot of the men in the infantry unit had no use for me. They flat out told me I didn't belong there. That changed a couple of months after I got there. Our unit went out for the weekend to conduct field training exercises, and we were planning a 9-mile hump that night. For those who don't know, a hump is a hike, but it's with flak jackets and helmets and rifles and backpacks and all that sort of thing. Several of the guys had asked me if I was going on the hump, and when I said yes, they laughed. They said, "This is going to be funny." I said, "Okay, we'll see." I'm not going to argue with them. So all day I was chugging tons of water, because if I didn't make it, it wasn't going to be because of something I could control, like dehydration. As it started to get dark, we set out on the hump. There were 200 Marines separated into 2 long lines. I was the only female, and we went up and down the sand dunes of Fort Ord, California. Nobody would talk to me, but that was probably a good thing because I didn't really want them to know how out of breath I was. About a third of the way up there, I heard, "Company, halt!" So we all stopped. "Face outboard." Everyone turned, faced the bushes, started going to the bathroom right there. Luckily, I grew up with brothers, so I wasn't really fazed by this, and when they were done, I said, "Excuse me," and went off into the bushes and did my own thing. Back then, I was in a lot better shape than I am now, quite a few pounds and quite a few years less, but as a reservist, I still was not accustomed to that kind of exercise. So it was definitely difficult, but there was absolutely no way I was going to quit. I had gone to cold weather training in Minnesota the year before, and I remembered things I had learned there. When it cooled down that night, I loosened up my clothing so that I wouldn't sweat as much, because that can cause hypothermia. I continued to drink water all day long, or all night long as we hiked, and I just kept telling myself, just a little farther, just a little farther. And it's amazing what we can make ourselves believe. Finally, we were done. I had made it, and 10 of the guys had not. One of them went to the hospital for dehydration. The other's issues were either dehydration or hypothermia, those 2 things that I was able to control and prevent. Some of the guys looked at me and said, "She's not even sweating." I did not let them know how much pain I was actually in or how overheated I actually felt. But their attitudes definitely changed, and quite a few of them apologized for their earlier discrimination. They gave me what they considered to be the ultimate compliment: "You're a grunt." Hoorah. Situations like that led me to have a strong conviction for taking responsibility for one's own situation. There are definitely things in life we cannot control, but we need to take ownership of those that we can, including our attitudes about the things that we cannot control. When I was invited to speak here today, I asked what I should speak about. I said, should I talk about why I went in, what I did, or what I got out of it? And I was told yes to that either or question. So you have heard about why I went in, what I did, and much of what I gained from it. But even more than the self-discipline and sense of accomplishment, the most important thing I gained from the Marines was an enormous sense of pride in being an American. This part might make me emotional again, by the way. I had visited other countries in high school, so I had a general idea of how much we had and how many things we took for granted, but becoming a Marine made me feel more patriotism than I had ever felt in my life. After becoming a Marine, the national anthem would bring tears to my eyes, and I would actually listen to the words and think about what they meant. My kids might tell you that I'm a nag about them standing respectfully and putting their hands on their hearts during the national anthem. And they're right. I am. And I'm okay with that. Not too much bothers me more than being at an event and watching people not only keep their hands in their pockets, but move around, answer their phones, and do anything besides show respect for our flag during the national anthem. Fortunately for those people, we live in an amazingly free country, and they're allowed to do that. But what they need to remember is that a lot of men and women have fought for those rights, and even if they don't love everything about our country and our government, they should at least show respect for our military men and women by standing and responding appropriately during the Star-Spangled Banner. If it's uncomfortable to stand still for a minute or so, think about all the discomfort that others have gone through for us. Another thing I learned from my brief military stint, and have seen even more since, is how incredibly smart, talented, and awesome our military personnel are. Since I had used it as kind of an escape and to gain some self-discipline in my life, it was really easy to think of the military as a last resort for people. But I was actually one of the exceptions. And I wasn't a total loser. I did have to pass academic and physical tests to get in and to graduate from basic training, so no, they won't just let anybody in. But most people joining the military are intelligent and self-motivated individuals, and it's not necessarily a case of them needing the military. Our military needs them. And we are so lucky to have such high caliber people representing our country and fighting for our rights. In addition, military spouses don't get nearly enough credit or attention. Right up there with my brother being my hero is my sister-in-law. My brother told me once, when they had been married for 22 years, that he had spent almost exactly 11 years away, half of his marriage, apart due to his military commitments. I guarantee that was not easy on them. But somehow they've managed to have a relationship that many would envy and raise 3 wonderful children. And I think my brother would agree with me when I give most of the credit for those children to his wife. He is an extremely involved parent, but his time was taking up serving for all of us. I know his family felt that sacrifice in so many ways, and they never complained. Military spouses are awesome. Along those lines, there's been a lot in the news lately about the mistreatment of veterans. I don't want to get on a political soapbox here, no soapbox, but I will say that our country is failing our veterans in so many ways, especially medically, financially, and emotionally. And I pray that recent awareness of these issues will lead to the sweeping changes that are so desperately needed. In closing, I think this went faster than I intended, sorry. In closing, I want to wish all of you a blessed Memorial Day. For those who are remembering and honoring loved ones they've lost, my heart goes out to you. For everyone, I hope you get to enjoy this beautiful weather with family and friends, and I hope I get to smell lots of yummy treats cooking on the grills today, because people can say that's not what it's about, but that's partially what Memorial Day is about. You know, we might as well, there's no reason to not enjoy it. I also hope that you all feel that the winter that wouldn't end is finally over. Memorial Day tends to give us a sense of summer, and we can appreciate the outdoors again. But most of all, I hope that you'll make it a point today and every day to think of all who have served our country and give thanks in whatever way you can, even if that simply means putting your hand on your heart and standing respectfully during the national anthem. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. That was a wonderful speech, and appreciate your service to our country. Thank you.